Okay, good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Township of Springfield Planning Board meeting for July 8th, 2019. Adequate notice has been given in accordance with the Sunshine Law. Notice was published on June 20th, 2019 in the local source, which happens to be the official newspaper of the Township of Springfield for 2019, and posted in the Annex Building on June 21st, 2019. Let's do a salute to the flag, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Perfect. Let's do a roll call, please.
Chairman, I was thinking about you.
Chairman Rich Huber.
Here.
Mr. David Barnett.
Here.
Mr. Andrew Schwartz.
Present.
Mr. Jerry Fernandez.
Here.
Ms. Sylvia Krasbowski is absent. Ms. Carolyn Singer.
Here.
Mr. Scott Wishna.
Here.
Ms. Marissa Ruggiero.
Here.
Mr. Brian Rendell.
Here.
Vice Chair Sharon Kessel.
Here.
And Chairman Jeff Tyler.
Yes,
We
here.
have a quorum.
Perfect. Everyone had an opportunity to review the June 2019 meeting minutes on the Google Drive. Mm-hmm. Anyone have any questions or concerns?
No.
Can I have a motion to approve?
Don't move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I have to abstain.
Anyone abstain? Including
I
abstain
have to
too?
abstain.
Okay, good. Takes care of that. Okay, resolutions. We had two resolutions on the Google Drive. It was application 3-2019S, which is Car Realty LLC, 35 Brown Avenue, Block 3102, Lot 404. This was preliminary and final site plan for some bulk variances. Before we do this, Mr. Disco, they have completed all the COs or CCOs?
Did all the change of tenants.
Tenants.
Still involved in the DEP aspect of it.
But you're keeping an eye on it?
Yes.
Perfect. Everyone had a chance to review that resolution? Can I entertain a motion to approve said resolution?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for the approval of application 3-2019S.
Second.
Can I have a quick roll call?
Mr. Barnett.
Yes.
Committeeman Huber.
Yes.
Mr. Schwartz.
Abstain.
Ms. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Wishna.
Yes.
Chairman Tyler.
Yes.
And Vice Chair Sharon.
Yes.
It's okay.
Motion passes.
Okay, the next one, the resolution was for United Windows and Doors, which is application 5-2019S, 2436 Fathom Road, Block 4201, Lot 5. That was preliminary and final site plan for an expansion of a loading dock area. Everyone had a chance to review the resolution.
Yes.
Can I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for the approval of application 5-2019S.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Carolyn?
Second.
All right, good. Sorry, Sharon. Additional. Roll call.
Mr. Barnett.
Yes.
Ms. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez.
Yes.
Mr. Wishna.
Yes.
Mr. Rendell.
Yes.
Vice Chair Kessel.
Yes.
Chairman Tyler.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, I'm going to go just a tad out of order on this. Anyone here for application 6-2019S, which is Tricolor, 656 Morris Avenue, Block 502, Lot 7, for preliminary and final site plan for bulk variances of retail building. This is being carried to July 29th at 7 p.m. in this very same room. There will be no further notice on that application. So to be clear, application 6-2019S will be carried to July 29th, 2019 at 7 p.m. in this very room. No further notice. Great. Next one is very important. We have to appoint an assistant board secretary. Mr. Disco got nominated and had no choice. So I'd like to have a motion to approve Mr. Disco for that.
Does he want to do this?
I nominate Mike Disco.
I'm going to second that one.
I nominate Keenan Hughes.
Aha, now we have a vote.
Do a roll
No
call.
second on that, sorry, Mike.
I did. I seconded it.
All right.
Painful for Mike.
Okay. Mr. Barnett.
Mike, are you, it's okay? Okay, yes.
Yes.
Chairman Tyler.
Yes.
Committeeman Huber.
Yes.
Mr. Schwartz.
Of course,
Mr.
yes.
Fernandez.
Yes.
Ms. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Wishna.
Yes.
And Mr. Ruggiero.
Yes.
And Chairman Tyler.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yes. No additional pay and all the glory. Okay, the next thing is we're going to have a little bit of an ordinance review. With the changing times, there is, potential needs to kind of figure out where certain types of establishments will wind up if they do apply to come into Springfield. Mr. Keenan sent a letter to the board, which was just put on our table. If you want to take a quick minute to review it, and then Mr. Keenan, if you want to kind of address the board and kind of update everyone, give a minute for everyone to review it. Everyone have a copy?
Okay.
Floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you had asked our office to evaluate the issue of licensed marijuana facilities and potential zoning controls on that specific use within the township. The thought here is to have the planning board provide some thoughts and some guidance to the township committee in anticipation of a potential ordinance amendment. So with that in mind, in looking at the township as a whole, to the extent such businesses could perhaps be permitted in town, we felt that along Route 22 within the HC Highway Commercial Zone was probably the most appropriate of the existing zone districts. This would then prohibit them within the downtown and neighborhood retail zones. So the thought being this would likely be more of a destination-oriented retail type use, or even a larger scale commercial facility that would be more appropriately located along Route 22. So in this memo before you, we would suggest that any potential ordinance amendment would first define what we mean by marijuana facilities. So we have state licensed marijuana businesses that cultivate, process, sell, and or distribute marijuana in accordance with all applicable state rules and regulations. And then the actual tweaks of the ordinance are pretty straightforward. You would simply add marijuana facilities as a permitted use within the HC Highway Commercial Zone, and then add a parking requirement specific to that use at 1 per 200 square feet, which is consistent with other similar retail and commercial uses in the township. So again, this was some initial thoughts that I think are intended here for discussion, and then we would anticipate transmitting either a memo or some letter to the township committee to provide some further directions and that they consider potential.
But this is just a suggestion. The
Yeah.
township committee can do exactly what we want.
They can crumple up the piece of paper and throw it away. They can evaluate it and so forth. So, any thoughts from the board?
What
Jared?
is medical usage for? Would that fall into this also, if someone
Yes.
wanted to?
It's medical, not because it's what's approved by the state.
Right, I guess I thought it was in case things change next year when they put it up to vote.
At that point, it would have to be re-amended.
Well, I think the thinking is to cover both.
Right, that's what I thought this was for.
The expansion of licensed dispensaries as well as potential adult legal use marijuana use.
Are there any dispensaries in the town already?
Not that I'm aware of.
And if there are, and the township,
Rich's house.
and the township passes this, they would be grandfathered in to staying where they are? Let's say they're in one of
The
our
only
office
ones that would be
buildings.
there now would be medical. I mean,
Right, exactly, but if there's a doctor's office, or if there is a medical dispensary in one of the professional buildings that we have now, let's say along Morris, would they be allowed
From a zoning
to remain there?
perspective,
Because
they
they'd
would be
be,
grandfathered in as a non-conforming use.
is marijuana the, lack of a better term, sort of the legal description of these businesses? I've heard it referred to as cannabis, or does, and therefore, does this also cover like CBT and derivatives of the cannabis plant as well?
I don't know that it would cover CBD-based businesses. Those are not, to my knowledge, required to have marijuana level licensing at the state level. But in my research of other ordinances and in my experience, typically I would use marijuana or cannabis as the term. It's typically more marijuana use.
So if there was a business that was selling like CBT infused oils and things like that, I was just reading about a New Jersey-based company that is doing that, they could open up a retail space for that product on Morris Avenue. But if they were a if they became fully licensed, they would not be able to be there. Yet it's derivative of the same plant.
Considered a retail operation, to my knowledge. I mean, I would defer to other experts on what licensing is required for those, but to my knowledge, it doesn't require state level. Perhaps for councils.
Yeah, so according to our business administrator, if the board acts to just refer this matter to the governing body for review, the township attorney and our township planner will get together, craft something for the township committee to review at their next meeting.
See, the thing is, if I'm not mistaken, I think August,
mistaken.
they're gonna go, they have to apply for any type of license with this. You know, even as this is passed, you have to supply in August, 'cause we're getting letters, the township committee has on this. And it's, you know, like I said when I was mayor, that before I let anybody come into it, I'd let the people speak, I mean, let the people vote on it. I wouldn't just say, I don't think 5 people should dictate if we're gonna do it or not.
I think it's also an inclusionary issue. We don't know where the nearest medical dispensary is.
Right.
And there are residents of Springfield who do need it for medicinal reasons.
I
And
agree
I
with
don't
that, yeah.
think that the population of the many should be able to decide whether or not that should be available to them.
The idea, we're not suggesting that it not be in Springfield. We're
Yeah.
just suggesting that it would be on the typical Route 22 corridor. We have this amazing
Yeah.
part of the town that there's just so much traffic coming in as opposed to potentially the downtown, or could be a residential, you know, near a residential area. If you look on South Springfield where Krausers is, if they ended up going out, that would be really right in the residential area from a standpoint. So the idea was to try to
Seems
put
to
it.
me that
What are
there
the-
are 2 issues here.
Yeah.
One is from a zoning perspective, where we, as the appointed planning board, think an approved facility should be located. The other is for the township committee to decide whether or not and how to go about approving, allowing them in. So I think that issue, the one that the mayor just raised, or the deputy mayor just raised, is above our pay grade here today.
all we're
And we're
doing-
just assisting. On the specifics, though, I have 3 points I'd like to make. One, in the definition of marijuana facilities, and I'm acting out of naivete here, whether or not we want to be as broad as we are here and include such things as cultivating, as opposed to limiting it to sales and distribution. Cultivating to me is growing.
She's our
It is.
expert.
So currently, the state license holders, the original licenses that were granted required it to be a single location that cultivated, processed,
all or
and
nothing.
distributed. So that's sort of state language that limits, you know, by limiting, like, as you said, that you could only sell it but not cultivate it or this or that, it limits who can come in and apply for a permit in town. If you want to do that, you could ultimately, or to your point, more so the
Right.
township committee could, but that's broad language based on what's currently
Okay.
going on in the state.
My second point would be that I would amend the definition where it says state rules and regulations, and I would add local there. Obviously, that's going to depend on what the state legislation actually provides, whether it can be regulated on a local basis, but we're best off not precluding ourselves if we're permitted. And then third, I just want to clarify, Keenan, when you started your statement, you said that by including it in the HC highway commercial zone, that precludes it from everywhere else. We don't need to put a preclusion elsewhere in our ordinance?
Not in my opinion.
Okay.
That was my question this afternoon, same thing. You know, do you want to specifically call out not residential, not, but no?
So I don't understand, and I haven't heard yet tonight, maybe between our professionals, I don't understand what the pros and cons are to having it just here or having it elsewhere. Or is there experience that other towns have that would make us, you know, recommend this to say, boy, this is not a good use for like a Morris Avenue and it should be on 22 or not? How have other, I know there's not a lot of, there's not a lot of these around the state yet and all, but can you give me any kind of insight as to why it should be here versus there?
Right, I agree with you, Dave. I mean, is there, maybe for medical reasons, maybe the center of town might be a good location?
Yeah, I don't know, this is not my
Medical is-
purview.
I don't know, or,
Yeah, medical is
or
one
maybe,
thing.
you know, or Rich, like you said, maybe people don't even want it, I don't know. But I agree with you, David, I think we need some more information.
Yeah, I think my point when I considered this is that much like when we were discussing massage parlors a couple years back, I'd rather they not be anywhere near a school or a religious facility.
so the
And
whole-
if you put them on Morris Avenue, you've got called right there, and you have the church on Church Mall.
So
And
that's,
that's what you miss on Route 22.
Right,
Well, I figured-
but I'm okay with a Massage Envy or an establishment like that. And a lot of times when we were considering the massage parlors, in our minds, we were thinking about not the good ones, right? But if it's, but if it's a perfectly, legitimate, establishment that's well-run and operates within our, within our ordinances and our guidelines, then, all right, well, I'm okay with a reputable establishment being on Morris Avenue by a school, because there's no reason to assume that anything improper is happening.
yeah, another thing was the parking thing. If you have the center of downtown and this one opens, it could be a parking issue too. So that's why we felt, just as Andrew said, it keeps it away from Caldwell, it keeps it away from the religious places, it keeps it on a very, having it in Springfield may be a good thing, but it keeps it in a traffic corridor area that is neutral to residents, where if it's the right thing, if people are not happy with it, at least it's not, it's on the highway.
I respectfully disagree with that. We're creating a plan for downtown that's going to have restaurants, it's going to have stores, and people will drive their cars and they'll park and they'll go to a restaurant. And a restaurant with 100 seats might have 25, 30 cars.
We're not limiting liquor stores.
We're not limiting liquor stores. We're not, so,
Again, look,
But
know,
those
this
are the
is-
existing.
I agree with the medical marijuana should be allowed in the center, could be in the center of town. Recreational marijuana, no. That's the way I feel.
Well, part of the problem with that, though, is we do not know what legal challenges that will face as to any sort of discrimination between the two types of dispensaries. And if we go with what's suggested here now, there's nothing to stop us once we have the experience that I think we all admit we are lacking,
Yeah.
from amending this to permit it 5, 10, 15 years down the road when there's other towns have had positive or negative experiences or the like. And we have a corridor, we have a space that will be attractive, I think, on Route 22 to this business type.
I agree with
And
that.
so Springfield it should the governing body or the populace choose, will be able to accommodate
I agree.
it without the risks, and we can always go back.
but the problem with Route 22 is how much space is really available for one of them to move in.
No, it's
I bet
the
they'll find it.
availability, it's the cost. So the operating expense of having a business on Route 22.
Yeah, I mean, the cost of the
Purely
rent.
from a rental perspective is going to be prohibitive for some and not as prohibitive for other
Well, I'm
types.
just saying,
The
we're
mom
just-
and pop type entrepreneur may not be able to afford to operate, whereas the
They're not going to get a
larger-
state license.
well, the one thing they're doing right now,
I understand that, you need,
in the center of town, how many stores are we about to open up maybe? How many
open up- yeah, we're
spaces,
gonna
how many
open up quite a
rental
bit.
areas are we talking about that are going to be available maybe within the next 4 years?
So Jerry, do you think there should be one?
Personally, I don't even want it in Springfield, but if it's coming, then, that's just me.
It's gotta be,
But-
Union has approved it already, I heard. And that's why we have to do something.
We have to be ready for this.
No, listen, I'm
Protect,
not disagreeing with you.
to protect, like your kids, all the kids and everybody.
what are we protecting ourselves from?
I don't want it around schools.
Yeah, why
I
would
don't
we?
want it anywhere near a school.
I think you think the argument can be made, you don't want a liquor store near a school, it's the same thing,
I don't want it sold to children, it's an insomnia.
you know?
All right, so
I can't, I don't see the parallel.
I also see the net benefit from the traffic it'll bring to our downtown, or any other place in Springfield if it were to open.
That could also be a negative, because then you could bring excess traffic. The traffic is already an issue, and trying to, the parking, I know.
Well, this is pretty confrontational.
Certain times of the day, you can barely drive through that area.
The whole premise was to we always get things and say, wow, we should have zoned for this. Shame on us, we didn't do it. So this idea was to be forth planning. Obviously, we're giving guidance to the governing body. We are not the final decision maker. The 5 of them will be. But the idea was to try to follow through to give the most access to, we're limited from not being near a school, not being near a religious organization.
Are there
Those-
state regulations on that at all?
They're gonna be.
Yes. It's still not allowed within the bounds of
Yeah.
the school, same with the drugstore.
What if we suggested for the downtown area that it be a conditional use and not a pre-approved use? Would that give us the ability to then look at traffic issues and deny
Could be arbitrary.
them? Well, but it wouldn't be if we do it right.
Yeah.
And if we look at, if we look at the traffic, if we look at
Parking.
space considerations, whatever else, they at least have to come to the board. They can't simply file a permit with, and don't, if they don't require variance, go forward.
Yeah, but it's always, I don't know, Keenan.
Oh, you could certainly look at the conditional use concept in downtown. That's something that
It is a,
consider, traffic isn't necessarily something you can control for those standards, but, there may be other things like parking, other, locational factors that we could look at. But yes, that is one way you can admit it in HC and then do conditional use in downtown.
Because maybe it makes sense over on Milburn Ave, or maybe it makes sense over on Morris Ave as you get closer down to where the Wawa is going to be, but not necessarily where Jolly's used to be across from Caldwell. And it may just, and while it's a big zone, there may be locations within the zone, close to a school, whatever, close to residential, that we want to have a little control over.
So why don't we do this? Why don't we just send a letter to the governing body that we're requesting them to look into this, as opposed to pass anything? Because let them, I don't think we have the set guidance. Jerry feels one way, Carolyn feels another way. Everyone's, it's going to have to be back
I
to
just
us
think we
anyway.
need some more information.
Yeah, so let's transmit, ask the board to agree and approve that our planner, who is the township planner as well, to transmit a letter to the governing body on behalf of the board to say that we've discussed this and we'd like them to consider it further, draft an ordinance and kick it, they're gonna have to kick it back to us anyway. So, with them, we'll review, make suggestions, and at that point in time, they can take them or not take them. Does that sound good for the board?
Yeah.
I'll do a voice vote. Anyone against it?
do they want, is this something they're asking for? This is something they.
Because they're
want
getting a
us
lot
to-
of
We have to,
applications.
we have to start making decisions. because
Okay.
if-
Then I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So, everyone okay, comfortable? We're going to ask our planner to send a note on behalf of the board that we've discussed this. We've not made any specific recommendations, but that this is something they should be looking at. That we're requesting to look at something and then get back to us if they feel the need.
Do we want to make this?
Can down the road.
It very much is.
We're not doing anything, really.
Well, it's putting it to them, the governing, I mean,
They're the ones,
But that's
they're the ones that are gonna have-
Understood, but then what are we doing?
We've
Other than,
initiated.
we need more information
But
to
they
even make a recommendation,
They can come back
right?
to us
And that's what the township
but
committee
they have to
should
come,
do.
but they have to come
is
back to us
request
anyway.
more
If-
information.
Unless we had a physical
From the-
ordinance tonight that was passed, that we recommended them looking at, it would have to come back to us. So they're going to review it at their next meeting or meeting after, and then draft something potentially and kick it back to us.
And they have to decide the primary issue in the first place, yes or no,
Yeah.
in general.
So at least it gets, like I said, it is kind of kicking it down the road, but it's also jump-starting it from the standpoint of saying, it's out there, we'd like them to look at it, they can do it.
I would hope they would bring in experts on
Yeah.
both sides and have a little bit of
I
a
mean,
hearing
I
on it.
think there should
and-
be more, what are other towns doing procedurally that would help in making.
So with that,
Sure.
is that, everyone comfortable with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
So let's move on. That's enough of that. We burned that one out. Tried. Okay, so the next one is, I just wanted to give an update. The board's asked, we have a couple meetings coming up, what's going to take place in those meetings, so they're aware of. We have our July 29th meeting, which as of now is going to be Baltusrol for an application, as well as we just carried application 6-2019 for preliminary and final site plan. That one's also July 29th. August 7th, the Gomes subdivision, not Gomes downtown redevelopment is tentatively scheduled to come back to this. They have not submitted the plans, but they're supposed to be doing it any day. And then the August 13th would be the Saks.
7th and 13th.
13th. Now, if there is no redevelopment, as always, we typically will take August off. If there's redevelopment, then we will have the redevelopment applications in order to our commitment of furthering the redevelopment of Springfield.
You see they're knocking down the Gomes building?
They are, but we won't get into that. So again, so the 29th is going to be Baltusrol and application 6-2019. August 7th will be Gomes, if they submit, which they say they will, and August 13th would be the Saks ownership that will come in and do that application. So for everyone planning. If anything changes, Jen will communicate with the board. Okay? Next thing is our esteemed attorney is going to take a quick timeout. We're going to do application 6-2017S. Jen, just reflect that you left the meetings or something like that. Summit Hill at Springfield, 100 Stone Hill Road, block 1002, lot 2. This is for site plan amended field change administratively. Mr. Disco is going to approve administrative change, and I felt that he should give the board just a heads up of what it was when we approved this 2 years ago.
It was principally, board members may recall, they were putting a pool clubhouse at the time, next, adjacent to the existing pool. That was constructed, was inspected prior to Memorial Day last year. I did a letter, gave it to Sam at that time, with the minor outstanding issues. The top lot was proposed, there was no details at the time when it was proposed, it was going to, it's a condition that they were going to provide details at a later date, and they did it. It wasn't that important in the grand scheme of the application. The management company, development group, and I presume the members of that community have decided they'd rather have a patio with grill capability rather than a top lot. It's smaller in footprint and scope than what the top lot was. It doesn't impact the lot coverage or the variance in any way. And so, again, they're proposing it. They didn't do the top lot as of yet. It gave us a chance to re-inspect what they had to catch up on. They gave us a letter, actually, that they installed a handicap accessible parking placard the other day, and they're doing the hairpin straightening by today or tomorrow. So that was essentially the change. Trade the top lot for a patio area, grills, outdoor grills next to it.
And for the board saying, Mike, we don't need to vote on this, it's something that Mike just advising the board that this is the case. Instead of him drafting a letter, we had time, I felt that he would just give an update.
We reviewed the resolution, we reviewed the minutes. It was really almost not even mentioned other than one word in it. It was a future top lot. And again, there's no exacerbation of anything. The only variance at the time was lot coverage as a result of when we amended our lot coverage shortly through the town. So their existing non-conforming lot coverage was actually reduced as part of that project, and it's not going to be exacerbated as part of this.
Perfect. And the board have any?
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Board have any questions?
No.
No? Okay, so thanks for the quick update. Perfect, okay. Can our attorney come back? I was like, we're like, oh, there you are. She went on the side.
Did she represent them like that?
Their firm represents the owner, so
Good.
there was no legalness of having her, so I wasn't going to get the township attorney.
Understood.
So, okay, so the next thing is application 4-2019. This is Divine Rodico, 15 Kipling Avenue, block 30509, lot 21. This is for minor subdivision, 4 bulk variances and 2 new homes. So while you get situated, let me, because I understand there's some public here to speak, so let me give you an idea of what's going to take place in the process, so that way everything is. So we're going to let the applicant put their entire testimony on the record. After that point in time, before even the board discusses it, we're going to let our planner and our engineer educate the board on what they've reviewed in the letters that they've written. After that point in time, the board's going to converse and ask questions of the professionals, and then we'll open it up for the public. We'll, at that point. So with that, go ahead.
James First, FOPRST, representing Devin Bravato, who's here. I don't intend to call her, but she's here if the board has any questions of her. I intend to have 2 witnesses in 3 parts. We have our civil engineer here, Matt Seckler. He will also serve as planner. We'll have him testify as a civil engineer as our first witness. We have Robert Hernandez, who's an architect, who will be our second witness. And then we're going to have Matt come back and essentially testify as a planner with regards to the C2 variance requirements, etc. We had received a letter from Mr. Disco dated May
Based on his letter, several changes were made to the plans.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? Jerry, this isn't the 200 feet where you live, right? No?
I never-
You didn't get a
I
notice?
don't believe I got a notice.
Okay, then you're good. It's closed. It's closed.
Listed by that much.
Yeah, I don't remember getting a notice.
Do you have the, just look at the plan just to see if it's, just in case.
I should have it on here.
I don't want you to have to.
Yeah, you don't check it.
Mr. Chairman, I'll have to back. Full disclosure, Mr. First is the prosecutor in Mount Sinai.
It's fine. I don't find it a conflict.
You don't get to leave.
No, you don't get to leave either.
No, he's still assistant secretary.
Exactly.
He's still assistant. You need to make sure that everyone in Mountainside knows his new title.
It's not on that one. Did you submit it with the,
I have
all this? It's usually in here.
There it is.
It's on sheet 2 of 7.
Jerry, what's your address?
393.
Nope, you're good.
27 is the closest.
No, you're good.
303.
You can't leave, Jerry.
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
Appreciate your time tonight. As I said, I served as a member of the planning board myself for 12 years, so I appreciate everyone's time this evening. I will try to be as brief as possible, yet as thorough as possible. Based on Mr. Disco's letter, I had forwarded that to our professionals. Mr. Hernandez in particular, a few things he had made recommendations on. One was a look-alike division. Wanted to make sure that those two properties, if approved, don't have a similar or exact look or a mirror type of look. So you'll see that the plans that you have actually been amended, and there's some very great detail, both in terms of the elevations as well as the materials. So you'll hear him talk about that. In addition to that, there was a coverage issue. In reading the ordinance, Mr. Hernandez was reviewing the foundation as the coverage. Your ordinance obviously is written such that the overhangs or the eaves actually equate to coverage. So you'll see in his testimony what you have is no longer what we're proposing. We've shrunk the size of those buildings so that we can conform with the ordinance and not require that additional variance. So really what we're here for, 4 variances, one for each of the 2 proposed lots. One of those is as to coverage, is as to size of the lot, and the other is as to frontage. With that, I'll call my first witness, Mr. Matt Setzer.
Can you swear him in and ask him all the questions about the licenses are good and all that stuff?
Yes, do you swear that the testimony that you will give is true in its
Yes.
entirety?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and you are this time professional engineer?
Professional engineer, but I guess I should just be sworn for both. so
Sure.
get this again.
And the professional planner?
Yes. My name is Matthew Seckler. That's Seckler, principal at Stonefield Engineering Design. Address is 92 Park Avenue in Rutherford, New Jersey. I believe I've appeared before this board, but I definitely appeared before the zoning board on a number of occasions in the township. I'm a licensed professional engineer, professional planner in the state of New Jersey. I've been accepted for over 100 boards in the state of New Jersey with either special.
And your licenses are current?
Yes, they are.
Any other questions from the board? Any concerns? Okay, so we'll accept this as an expert. Go ahead.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Matt, take us through your review of the property known as 15 Kipling Avenue, please.
Sure, absolutely.
I think there's a mic over there, I don't know. And this is sheet 1 of 7, and what was
Well,
provided?
this is actually different. This is just an aerial exhibit, so I'm going to mark this A1. It's prepared by Stonefield Engineering and Design. It's titled Aerial Exhibit 1 of 3. Date prepared is July 8th, 2019. What you see on the plan is an aerial from Google Earth. Running from left to right along the near bottom of the sheet is Mountain Avenue. We've highlighted the site in yellow just so you see it in the general neighborhood. We are on Kipling Avenue. As you go to the right, which is actually north on this page, is Hillside Avenue, then the golf club. Going to the left is Mapes. To the top of the page, which is to the west, is Wentz Avenue, and the bottom is Mountain Avenue. I'll briefly zoom in. And A2 is another aerial exhibit. This one is prepared by Stonefield Engineering and numbered 2 of 3, dated with today's date. This shows you the proposed subdivision lines on the aerial plan. What you could see is outlined in the darker yellow is the actual outline of the lot. Again, this is an aerial, so it's a rough line. But what you could see is that generally what you have before you, if you drive by this site in current condition, you have a house generally on 50 feet of this 100-foot wide lot, and a empty grass area on the other 50 feet. So you have a house that doesn't quite sit in the central of the lot, but actually sits on the western half of the lot. And on the next page that I'll show you, which is previously been submitted, so I don't believe we need to mark that unless that's your custom.
No, it's fine. If we have it, it's good.
As long as it's not one of the sheets that has changed.
No, this is unchanged. And this was sheet 2 of 7, the lot subdivision plan. What we are proposing is taking that lot again, slicing it in half, and proposing two residential structures side by side on the 2 lots. We are proposing to take this 100 by 100 lot, cut it in half, so you have 50 feet of frontage and still the 100 feet in depth. This is, and I'll get into my planning testimony later, this is the S60 zone, which does require 60 feet of frontage. We are, before this board, asking for variance as it relates to lot frontage, because we are only going to have 50 feet. The architect will get into further testimony about the style of house, the design of the house, the number of bedrooms, the architectural features as you're driving by in the front, which we have improved to make them not identical as you drive by. But just to highlight, we are proposing a driveway that will have a 1-car width as you enter, but 2 cars width as you get onto the site, so that it makes it for easier access if you are someone who's parking in the garage. The other person who parks could park off to the side, so you don't have to do the jockeying in and out of the driveway. But by limiting the driveway cut, it does maintain the maximum amount of curb frontage for any type of on-street parking. We are proposing pervious pavers for the driveways. Your ordinance does allow for pervious pavers to be utilized to offset impervious coverage calculations. What we have done as part of this analysis is we have taken basically a 50% credit for the pervious pavers, meaning that we are proposing about 532 square feet of pervious pavers. We are counting that as 266 square feet of impervious coverage. Again, we are taking a 50% credit for the fact that any rain that hits this driveway actually gets into the soil through the rock bed system that is underneath the paver system. Again, from an engineering standpoint, we have reviewed the engineering review letters. I know that your engineer will speak to later, but we will be willing to supply any type of drainage calculations, stormwater calculations as it relates to this development, and whether there's a need for dry wells or anything like that as this, should this project be approved, we would be agreeable to the condition of providing all those calculations. Just as it relates to this property, we are proposing to comply with all setbacks. The buildings are located within the buildable area, front yard, rear yard, side yards on either side. So we are within the allowed building envelope with this development. So again, we are proposing a structure that meets the coverage calculations, meets the setback calculations, meet the height calculation. The only thing that we're here for is because we're taking a lot that is currently oversized as 100 by 100 and making it a 50 by 100, 2 lots side by side.
So Matt, just go on the setbacks real quick. So on each of these lots, the proposed structures would meet and exceed the required side yard setbacks, correct?
Correct. As currently shown on this plan, which is the one that was submitted to you, we have 9-foot setbacks from the adjacent properties where 8 feet is required. As part of some of the analysis or the redesign that we've prepared and the architect will speak to, we've actually brought those in a little bit more, and the architect will speak to how we could position that within the buildable footprint. We may be able to increase the side yard setbacks to the adjoining non-applicant properties, increase that beyond the 9 feet that we're proposing to a greater number. And again, I'll leave the architect as he walks through the structure and the modifications, that we are currently providing 9 feet, 8 feet's required, but we may be able to provide more on those outer sides.
So in essence, as a condition, we would be willing to squeeze those 2 properties together so that the shorter side yard would be on the interior of the 2, thereby granting additional side yards to the 2 neighbors, one on the left and one on the right.
And still being compliant. We will shrink it into the middle, but still be 8 feet away from one another.
That's something the board will be interested in. Continue, thank you.
Overall, I believe we're compliant in parking. We're, again, compliant in pervious coverage. Again, from an engineering standpoint, this is a subdivision plan. We will obviously have to supply any type of other engineering calculations that your engineer requires should this application go forward.
Okay, what I would like like to do is open up to Mike to kind of first, and then come back to the board. So, Mike, is that all? Well, no, they're going to do.
Then we're going to do architect and the plan.
Okay,
So,
yeah, we're going to come back. Then fine, go ahead, do all. Go ahead. Then we'll do public. Okay.
Robert Jones is sworn and I need to qualify.
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is true in its entirety?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and can you state your full name and tell us a
Sure.
little about your...
My name is Roberto Hernandez. I am a licensed architect in New Jersey since 2010. Before that, I worked for Thomas Bayo in Millburn for about 10 years. And I'm also licensed in New York. So I don't recall appearing before this board, but there's a couple of familiar faces, so I may have. I just don't recall. But
You've been accepted as an expert by other boards?
Multiple boards. Yes.
You have a current license?
Yes, I'm currently licensed.
Anyone have any questions, concerns about that? Okay, go ahead.
Robert, you had an initial plan which we had submitted to the board. The professionals did the review on that. Based on Mr. Disco's analysis, you had amended those plans. So I'll ask you to take your new plans and to mark those as you proceed for the benefit of the board and the professionals.
You can mark that as A3.
A3?
If you could put that on the front easel, please.
Down there.
We'll spread it out.
So these are new plans that you've not been provided?
Correct, Mr. Short. They were designed
I'm going to look at it in a second.
And you don't have, you did not bring copies for the entire board?
I did not.
Okay.
I'm going to pass this down in a second.
So, one thing that we did was, actually, before I started working on a second front view, I started on reducing the size of the house so that we could meet the maximum allowable building coverage of 25%. I believe that upon review of Mr. Disco, we were at 29.4, 29.2, and we were over by 4%, not knowing that the soffits, the roof soffits counted towards building coverage. So we started working on reducing the house and hopefully not affecting the room sizes, but we had to redesign the second floor so that we had, decent sized rooms. And so the first thing that we started doing was starting reducing square footage from the garage. I believe we pushed in 1 foot on the living. This is the first floor plan.
It says sheet 5 of 5.
Sheet 5 of 7.
5 of 5? 5 of 7. 5 of 7.
5 of 7.
So A4, so, wait, let's go back. A3
Was
the
cover
first page
sheet.
of that. So then what's the title and the title box on the first page, just so we can keep track of everything?
So we're going to mark as A3,
Is that sheet C1? Is that what it says?
C1,
C1.
and this is
3 of 7.
C1, 3 of 7. Date, what's the date?
And today's date is July 8th.
July 8th.
On the plan date is July 8th. Okay.
I have March 25th.
Yeah, you're going to use this one. Here's the most current one. I don't need it. I can see up there, and so can the rest of the board.
Okay. And then the next sheet that you went to,
Sorry, this one's dry.
so A,
A2.
okay. So can you mark that as exhibit A4?
So A4 contains the first and second floor plan of the house, of the proposed house. I reduced the house by over 2 feet on its width, and I believe also over 2 feet on its depth. So now the house, which used to be 32 foot 6 or 32 foot and change, now it's now 30 foot 1.5 inch, and the depth is 39 foot, including a cantilevered second floor where the master bedroom is. We still kept the open layout. I think the first floor was the least affected of the 2 floors, but it has a tight garage. It's not a large house at all. The first floor is only 819 square foot plus a 247 square foot single car garage. On the second floor, we had to redesign it because the bedrooms, which were previously on the right side, were highly affected by the reduction of the 2 feet, because when I reduced the house, I went in from the right side into, towards the left. So I had to redesign the bedrooms which were here and move them over to the left side of the house, still keeping a hallway here, but now it would lead onto a front-facing bedroom. So now we have 3 bedrooms on the second floor, two master closets, the master bathroom, they pretty much remain same. And then I redesigned this whole section so that we have a hallway accessible bathroom, a small laundry room, and a small computer room. The original application had 4 bedrooms. This has 3, and we decided to design, I think, around 320 square feet of finished attic, and put a 4th bedroom, which is what we had on the earlier, on the previous application.
Can we mark this page as A5?
A5, sure.
Referring to it.
So the attic, which we had it as a finished attic, but with a larger square footage, we reduced the finished area to incorporate that 4th bedroom that we had before on the previous application, and we still have that original bathroom at the same location. The rest of the attic, it will remain unfinished, so we're adding 370 square foot of finished attic.
To summarize, Robert, in this particular situation, so we've reduced the size of the property by 4% to comply with the ordinance.
By over 4.2, yes.
And you've gone from a 4-bedroom to a 3-bedroom home, right?
Yes. We still have a 4-bedroom house. The 4th bedroom is upstairs on the attic now. Yes. And so now we meet the maximum building coverage. We're at 24.9 and change. Then I started working on the front elevation. The original application had a stucco and cultured stone front with a dormer that from the attic you can look towards Kipling Avenue. On the second front elevation, which now I guess could be the house on the left side, we redesigned the placement of the windows. I redesigned the roof line, so you no longer have a main hip roof in the front. Now it's a front-to-back gable with 2 large front-facing gables. And I also redesigned the location of the windows, so that hopefully I don't think they look identical at all, especially because on this side this is stucco, and here we're using cultured stone and hardy plank siding.
Robert, with regards to the garages, we have the garages on the left side of both houses. Would it be easy or difficult for you to move that? If you wanted to swap it, if the board felt that it was more appropriate to have the garages on the interior or on the exterior, would it be difficult to change that?
For me, that's easy. That's just, I mean, if we wanted to even have a mirrored version, this mirrored and the garage on the other side, that's quite easy to do. Also, by reducing the width of the house by maybe like 2 feet 4, now we have increased the minimum side yard from 9 to 10 and change on each side, or if you prefer to separate the house from the adjacent existing homes, we can by over 2 feet for both homes.
Any other features of the home that the board's attention?
No, I just played with different materials.
Changes from what the board previously had. And I apologize, board, this was, came about at 10 o'clock this morning because of the holiday. We weren't able to converse about it.
Other than reducing the house and changing the exterior look and the materials, that's pretty much it.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll have Mr. Seckwick testify again, this time in his capacity as a professional planner.
I'll just identify what's being marked. I think there should be one for everyone on the board, but this is a pretty big board, so I brought 15 copies. I think that
They're
should be.
coming down here. They're coming down. It's fine.
So this is A 5, 6, what are we on? A6,
Yes, I'm sorry, I said.
prepared by Stonefield Engineering Design. The title is Tax Map Exhibit, and it's number 3 of 3. So this project is located within the S60 zone, which allows for a minimum lot area of 7,500 square feet. So what I did is I took your tax map, and the reason why some of the street names don't quite line up is the way the tax maps get pasted together, the names will overlap each other. But what we've shown here is basically the tax map of the entire, what I would consider neighborhood, from Mountain Avenue to Irwin Street in the rear. So basically one block in each direction, north-south, one block generally each direction, east-west. And what I've labeled here is I wanted to determine the typical lot size, lot area for the general development. Our site is outlined in blue, which if you're looking at the page, it's generally in the middle to the right. It's lot number 21, outlined in blue, and it has no shading within it. Everything shaded here are actually lots that do not meet the standard or the minimum lot area within this zone. So everything shaded, which is the vast majority here, which I believe is about 85% of them, are actually undersized per your ordinance. Obviously, when you guys develop an ordinance, I imagine that was established after this neighborhood was subdivided and constructed, but per the zoning requirements, everything that's shaded here does not meet the 7,500 square feet. That's the vast majority of this neighborhood. In addition, we highlighted lots that are over 10,000 or equal to 10,000 square feet. That actually in this whole area, out of 140 lots, are 3 of them. One is ours at exactly 10,000 square feet. The other 2 are outlined in gold. They are on the corner of Wentz and Mapes. Those are both corner lots. So this is the only mid-block lot that is 10,000 square feet or greater. So this is somewhat of a unique lot in the area. Corner lots sometimes are a little bit larger because of the uniqueness of building on a corner, especially a residential home, trying to site it properly within the overall lot area. What we've also labeled and outlined in red is all lots that are 5,000 square feet or less. So we've outlined in this whole general area about 19 lots, which is about 14% of this neighborhood, is 5,000 square feet or less, and that is what we're proposing here before you. In terms of the closest ones, because I know it's mentioned in the engineer and planner's letter, there is no 5,000 square foot lots between Mountain and Wentz, but if you look at the corner of Wentz and Kipling, there are 2 there, both 50 by 100, which is what we're proposing as part of this project. In addition to the rear, the immediate next door neighbor behind us is actually a 40 by 100, so a 4,000 square foot lot, which is actually smaller than what we are proposing. So again, this was just a general overview of the neighborhood. When we're looking in terms of a subdivision plan, I'm looking to see how this neighborhood is sized. And again, nearly every, 85% of the lots are undersized per your ordinance, minimum square footage. And again, there are a lot more lots that are 5,000 square feet or less than 10,000 square feet, which is what this lot is currently constructed as. So I would say this lot in its current condition sticks out more than what we are proposing in the proposed condition. The next exhibit that I'm going to hand out is going to be pulled up on the board.
That'll be A7.
This will be A7. And there are handouts going around. A7, for the record, is prepared by Stonefield Engineering Design. Prepared date is today. The title is As of Right Single Lot Exhibit. So what we've done on this sheet, and again, I'm not an architect, I don't market buildings, I don't design buildings, I design the outside of sites, is a building that can be constructed on this site as a single lot in terms of what size square footage can a house be on this lot if it maintains a 10,000 square foot lot. What you can build here is a 2,500 square foot footprint building, which could be about 6,250 square feet of footage. You're talking about a monster house for the neighborhood is what could be designed here, meeting the 25% building footprint building coverage requirement, and within all the side yard setbacks and front yard setbacks. Again, I'm not proposing, I don't have any architectural degree to say how this lot would, the building would be laid out inside, but just from a pure zoning standpoint, that is the size building that can be put on this lot, which would be fully compliant with your ordinance.
So Matt, just doing pure math, I have 8 on one side, 8 on the other, I have a 100-foot wide lot, so that leads me to calculate that that could be 84 feet wide along that front.
Correct, again, and I'm not an architect, I don't know if that's how wide you would build a house, but from a planning standpoint, that is the type of structure that could be on this lot, fully compliant with your lot coverage, fully compliant with your building coverage and your setbacks, and obviously your lot area and lot size. That building would be about 60% larger than what I would say is the standard lots or buildings within the zone. Most of the lots in this area are about 60 by 100 is the general trend in the area. This building would be 60% larger than the structures on those lots, which are typically, I would say, about 1,500 square feet, 1,200 square feet footprints. So this is a much larger building that can be built fully permitting, fully conforming on this lot. So again, from a planning point of view, I just want to show what would be an as-of-right development versus what we're seeking before this board, which is the subdivision plan, splitting it in half. Generally what you see out there today, which is the structure's on 50 feet of the lot, and you have this 50 foot of grass space. Instead, we're basically constructing within the 50 foot of grass space. So overall, when I'm trying to balance the positives and negatives with this application, I am looking at, one, the fact that this lot, being 10,000 square feet, actually sticks out more than having this lot be about 5,000 square feet, looking at the general trends in the neighborhood, and looking at the fact that a building that would be 60% larger than what is typically constructed within this zone when you're driving by would be more of a negative than providing for this application, which would, again, require a lot size and a lot width variance. Overall, again, balancing these two that could be potentially a huge house, or these two houses, which you've seen from the architect, have now been designed in separate roof types, separate material types, I think does promote the visual environment. I do believe that it does promote also the appropriate densities when you're driving by. Even now with just this kind of grass lot, this 50 by 100 lot kind of just sitting next to this property, I think actually stands out more than continuing the existing development pattern in this area, which is basically generally buildings with fully compliant side yards, front yards, and rear yard setbacks.
And the houses that are proposed, are those houses similar in size and scope and style to what you've otherwise seen in the neighborhood?
Yeah, again, there's a mix in this neighborhood. There are some, and again, I'm not an architect, so excuse me for some of the housing styles, but there are some, I would say, one-story houses and some two-story houses. Some of the larger lots, it looks like there have been maybe some knockdowns and some redevelopments of, I would say, larger houses, but again, this seems to be a mix of, one-story, two-story homes. Again, considering that we are compliant with the side yard setbacks and within the buildable area, I do think we are designing for an appropriate square footage on this property.
And so the board understands we're not asking for a C1 variance, we're asking for a C2 variance. I think you hear the testimony of the balancing act, the benefits here outweighing the detriments, as you can see. Anything else, Matt?
That's it.
I think that's all that we have for right now.
Okay, so I want to turn it over, since this is mostly planning testimony, our planner to kind of educate the board on it and give us both the positives and negatives as he sees fit, and then we'll open it up to the board for questions after Mr. Disco. Keenan, Mr. Hughes?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you've heard the testimony from the applicant, the requested variances for lot size and lot width for both of the proposed lots. It's a C2 variance situation, so the fundamental question I think for you to evaluate is whether the proposed subdivision to create two lots, two undersized lots with two separate dwelling units, is a better zoning alternative for the property than essentially as it's zoned now, which would facilitate one larger house. I do want to note, and Mr. Disco and I were just discussing on the as-of-right exhibit from the applicant, the side yard setbacks are actually required to be 26% of the lot width for the zone. So I think that would make it, since it's a 100-foot wide lot, 26 feet of side yard setback. So it's still one larger house versus two dwelling units on two undersized lots. I mean, that's essentially the question. So under the C2 criteria, you're looking at what benefit would that provide to the community in reference to the municipal land use law? What are the plan purposes in terms of, does that promote a better visual environment, does that promote general welfare, et cetera? And do the benefits outweigh the detriments? And looking at the negative criteria, the potential detriments to the public good, I think in a subdivision like this, the primary focus is really on neighborhood character. And I think that's why the exhibits that both the applicant and also the exhibit that Mr. Disco prepared are so important, because you can begin to evaluate just from a lot size perspective how this compares to the character. And of course, for those of you who visited the site, that's even more important in terms of evaluating the overall aesthetics of the neighborhood. So again, that's basically what you're looking at in terms of the C2 variances. Is this a better zoning alternative to the site than as it's currently zoned for non-dwelling?
Is it sound planning to do something like this?
Well, essentially, I mean, that's for the board to consider, right? It's really, would you rather have one larger house on this property or two smaller houses on two undersized lots? And you need to consider both the impacts to the character of the streetscape here on Kipling Avenue, understanding that these would be the two smallest lots on Kipling in between Mountain Avenue and Wentz Avenue. And then also the potential impairment to the zone plan. What does this mean in terms of the integrity of the zoning ordinance? And certainly, as you look around the greater neighborhood, obviously every case needs to rise and fall on its own merits, but there are other subdivision opportunities out there if a lot of this rough size could be subdivided into two lots. So, but certainly I think you need to focus on the merits of this particular application and whether you think two undersized lots make sense for this particular streetscape.
Mr. Disco?
You're asking me to talk.
Engineering, planning, whatever you give us some thoughts before the board opens up.
In the broad scheme, obviously, I haven't had a chance to review the lot building coverage impact on it, but I presume that a smaller building would make it comply. There is a retention requirement here because they are increasing by nearly 1,000 square feet the lot coverage on the site. The lot coverage per definition only works because of the pervious pavement driveway. The one always difficult thing with that is if it was commercial development, we would make them back and clean that and mandate that and be able to have some mechanism to site plan to do that. With residential, it's very difficult. Probably why they took the 50% credit for that, not for in terms of the water, when you've got three 110-foot lots on this same lot. So the argument is that you can subdivide a 100-foot wide lot into 50-foot lots, and you're also presumably you're going to make the argument that the three at the end of the same lot that are 110 feet wide would go to 55-foot wide.
Okay.
I think also, in comment number 9 of my review, this was reviewed more broadly by presumably the township committee when they did the land use ordinance review in 2003. And they stipulated a minimum 6,000 square foot non-critical area lot. So these two proposed lots violate that. So we can't say that this is a vestige of a 1980 land use ordinance that somehow isn't really applicable now. Everybody looked at this in detail in 2003 with some thought and came up with that 6,000 square foot limitation. So I didn't hear any testimony.
Okay. Okay, so the board, want to we'll start on that side.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just
Absolutely. Go ahead. Before we open it up, that would be perfect.
So,
if you have any additional, that's good.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Secretary, I reviewed Mr. Disco's analysis, and you see the his sheet, which is green and has a few reds. So that's only utilizing one calculation. We compare that to what you provided to the board, which was the gray. Can you just explain what the differences are between those two?
Yes, so Mr. Disco's analysis basically looked at just so the distance, the area between Mountain Avenue and Wentz Avenue. I went all the way to Irwin, just to get a larger neighborhood look at the area. Also, what is shown in green, Mr. Disco, again, was doing a comparison from our application, which is a 5,000 square foot lot. I was doing everything in gray, and mine was everything that is non-compliant per your current ordinance, which is 7,500 as the required square footage. In addition, just in response to, the concern of additional subdivisions that can be granted, notwithstanding the fact that obviously each application stands on its own, that was one of the reasons why I took a broader look and looked at lots that are this size or greater. And really, it's only the two corner ones on Mapes and Wentz that are 10,000 square feet or greater. The ones that do meet current size but are further down on Kipling, as you get towards Wentz, which would be lot 14, 15, and 16, they don't have the same depth as this property. So again, I would state that, if an applicant would come here looking to subdivide here, their depth is 25 feet less than ours in terms of what lot area that can be provided if you did subdivide those lots. So I do think that this application, it would be different than the subdivision of any of those other properties on this street.
And I think just a quick summary, Mr. Chairman, of this point is basically, more for the people, as you drive down the street, you kind of see this empty lot. And what we were going for, what we're hopeful to provide is this continuation of the streetscape. As you drive down that street, you don't want to look up and say, oh my God, what is that? And I think what we've done here is to provide a mechanism or to provide an appearance on the street where no one in 5 years when the shrubs grow in and the trees appear, no one is going to drive down this street and say, oh my God, what happened here? It's going to meld into that neighborhood very nicely, as opposed to if they were to build this larger property on the 10,000 square foot lot, you would drive by and say, oh my God, what happened there? Who is that? What is that house?
That's something to consider.
Chairman, were you going to hear from the public before we?
We're going to do us and then the public, and then it'll come back to us to kind of hear what the public is. So public's going to definitely get a chance to speak. So, Marissa?
I'm just having a very hard time visualizing. I'm looking at Google Maps. I'm familiar with the area. I also know this neighborhood is a lot larger than what's on this map. It extends, so I do have concerns, that there might be other houses in the neighborhood that's not shown on this map that could be, that could get the idea and get impacted. I guess I'm just kind of making comments. I'm also just kind of looking at the map, and it seems all the houses that are out of compliance, that are smaller, are not on Kipling. So if you look, if you're just on Kipling itself, the street itself is not, there's not, there's nothing down. I don't really know if I have a question.
We can come back.
Just more of it, yeah.
Okay. Mr. Brendel?
No, I'll do whatever.
Mr. Wishon?
Council can tell me if this is a fair question. But since the 2003 ordinance that was discussed by our professionals, have there been applications that have challenged this specific lot size that have come before this board?
Well, we've had.
There have been. We've actually denied.
We denied one.
Many of them that I can remember.
There's two that we did.
One on that oval.
On the oval.
Yeah.
But what street did we enter for your old home, Brian?
What's that?
Newbrook, was that where you entered? There was one on
Twin
Newbrook.
Oaks.
Twin Oaks
That's
or
what you're
Newbrook?
thinking.
Twin Oaks, then. We denied one in Twin Oaks,
Okay.
typically, that we've done. But that was, but nothing challenged the board's decision.
Denials should be a basis for consideration.
No, it's just asking for the history. One of the exhibits that was presented, I don't remember which. I did not see where the any of the HVAC equipment was located, was it against the rear or against the side
They're
yard?
actually on the drawings.
They'd have to be in the rear. They have to be in the rear. They'd have to be in the rear because side yard,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're not covering the
So,
side.
I guess
They
the,
gotta be.
right, because otherwise you're too close
Yeah,
to the.
they'd have to be in the rear.
Okay, so you calculated your rear setback from the footprint of the footing for the HVAC to the rear yard?
Repeat your question?
Is the calculation, the rear yard setback?
Yes.
Does it go from the footing of the
The rear yard
HVAC?
setback, the way that I have, at least it's from the back wall of the building to the rear yard of the property.
Okay, and what is what's the setback requirement?
And the setback requirement is
30 or?
30.
Is there a different setback for the entrance and the rear one? On the side yard, it's 10.
Right.
Yeah, I don't believe there's, for the,
For an air conditioning unit can encroach into the rear yard of setback. Okay, that's
I
fine.
believe so.
Okay.
I just don't want that to be a variance that we missed,
Okay.
if that is indeed a variance.
In the side yard, it would be the rear yard,
Yeah.
I believe.
That's,
Yeah, if you're looking ahead, which I did.
that's a frequent hardship that.
Yeah, because the way the lots are configured, a lot of the AC units, generators want to be in the side yard. That would be precluded by the current application plan.
Okay.
How would that impact the neighbors?
You build that behind, at the rear of the rear of the house.
Right.
As opposed to on the side of the house.
Right, but how would it impact, I guess, the neighbors who are behind them? When it's,
Further away than the typical side yard location.
okay.
But it would just preclude it from being in the side yard. So there's a utility aspect of it for future homeowners. That you want a generator, you're looking at it. You're there.
Anything further, Mr.
I don't have anything else.
Mr. Huber?
On this, about the plan and that, I was on the planning board when they went over this in 2003. They went over,
How can I tell? Gray hair?
every neighborhood they went through the whole town. And they recommended what they saw and what they did. And I agree with what the plan says. You know, like, to subdivide this, I think would be a mistake. I'll be very honest with you. I mean, it's, for the planning board to put all that time in and the planner at that time, they went through every neighborhood and combed the whole town. Because I don't know how many years, I don't know how long it took. But I just can't see dividing a lot like that, the way it is.
Mr. Barnett?
In that language already, it just says all single-family residential lots created after the adoption date of this ordinance, that was 2003, shall contain at least 6,000 square feet of contiguous, non-critical land with direct access to public street. And there's no-
Okay. Mr. Mayor Barnett?
I'll just ask a question, I'll reserve my opinion for when it
Yeah.
comes back, but how many cars can the driveway, not including the garage, I know it's a one-car garage, but how many cars can fit on the driveway?
So the way that we've designed it is so that you could have two cars, sorry. I'll pull up the sheet 2 of 7.
So each house.
Each house could fit two cars side by side in the driveway and one inside the garage, so 3 off the street.
That's all I wanted.
It's 20 feet in width for about 20 feet in length.
That's it.
Jerry? I surprised you.
Yeah. it's going right.
Well, I mean,
He's mixing it up.
I'm mixing it up, Ted.
You know, Michael, on your report, on number 10, the stormwater runoff, can you just touch on that again?
Sure, so, our ordinance for, commercial property is very distinct, there's very specific language in it. For non-commercial properties, for residential properties, you refer to residential standards, or to our broad definition where if you increase maybe it's slightly less now because of the shrinkage of the building envelope. On a 5,000 or 10,000 square foot lot, that's pretty significant, so you will decrease the rate of runoff off site. That can be managed, though. You certainly can construct an underground sewage facility or some mechanism to do it. Not in here yet, and that's why the comment's there. If you so approve it, it should be a condition. I think the testimony from their engineer, the first expert, was that they would.
We'll do drainage scouts and comply. I'll hold on side here. Carolyn?
I heard, sorry, I heard porous pavement before, or pervious pavement.
Pervious pavers, correct?
Yeah, so we're changing that to downspouts now?
No, ma'am, two different things.
Two different things. The pervious pavers are the driveway.
Yeah,
so-
it's when the water permeates through the driveway.
Exactly. It seeps through the driveway, through the stone, into the ground.
Yeah.
I think the comment related to downspouts, drainage design is separate, so should this application be looked favorably upon by this board, we would likely have to capture the rainwater that hits the roof, send them basically into a seepage pit of some sort on the site, design a seepage pit per your ordinance to make sure that we offset the increase in impervious coverage related to the structure itself. And again, just to clarify, the pervious pavers, when we did our coverage calculation, we did use only 50% of that calculation as pervious because of the issues that Mr. Disco mentioned, the upkeep of these type of systems over time in residential neighborhoods. You don't likely get the 100% seepage into the ground through them over time. So that's why we basically try to take like a 50% number, because there will still be continuous permeability. It's just likely not going to be at 100% if you're not vacuuming and have a maintenance schedule on them.
That was part of my comment, which is that's very expensive and it's hard to maintain pervious pavement. So I was just curious about what route you guys were going to go to for that. But that was my only question. So.
On the pervious pavement, that's allowable by our ordinance. We didn't, we're not.
No, I was just curious about the green infrastructure you're using. That was all.
Sharon?
Go ahead, Sharon. Ladies first.
I'm going to reserve my opinions until after I hear from the public.
Counselor, they're looking for two variances for the front and for lot size. What is the analysis under the law that we are supposed to make?
For those particular variances,
yes.
I believe the board planner spoke to that. There's C2 variances. That's the benefit outweighs the burden variance. You have to determine whether or not, in your opinion, the benefit of their proposal outweighs any detriments to the neighborhood, and the benefit has to be for the good of the neighborhood, not only to the landowner, as well as the negative criteria in which you would have to determine that the proposal, if approved, would not have a negative impact on the character of the neighborhood or the zoning scheme or plan. Right? I'm not a planner.
I'm sure.
I think that was very good.
No, I appreciate that.
I was going, which is worse? That's the way
Well, I think I think it was important for the public to hear that, because as much as we may or may not want to approve or disapprove, we're subject to the township's ordinances, and that's what our job is. But, and I definitely, when the public speaks, the one question I would like to hear the public speak to is what I perceive, and for lack of a better word, I see Exhibit A7 as a threat, that if you don't approve the two smaller houses, you're getting the big gigantic house. Whether it was intended as such or not, I'll let others judge, but that's how I perceive it. I also think that A6, with this expanded scope of blocks, including Hillside, Kipling, and Mapes, all the way between Irwin and Mountain, is dishonest. If you're familiar with the neighborhood, and I live in the neighborhood, I'm over on Wentz. I'm on the far side of Wentz, so I can sit on this application. Kipling is not a pass-through road. Kipling is a limited access road. Edgewood and Hillside are the two pass-through roads. So traffic going on to Kipling is typically there to stay on Kipling. And so even the neighbors on Mapes and Hillside aren't going to give any concern to what is going on, except possibly lots 3 and 4 on Mapes, which back onto this property. I'll tell you right now, my vote will be no unless the driveway on 2101 gets moved to the other side, because that is unfair, and I'm surprised that you would even propose to burden Lot 22 with that driveway right up against the property line, when they've been living there with an empty lot for so long. To not put it on the other side and burden the other new house is, to me, unprofessional. Speaking of which, just going forward, sir, if you're going to appear in front of this board and bring new plans, kindly bring enough plans for everyone on the board. It's a little hard to review them and judge them when they're presented to us fresh and we don't have them in front of us. But I'll wait for further comments until I hear from the public on that one question. I'd like to know, which do you prefer as living in that neighborhood? Do you want the one gargantuan house, or do you prefer the two smaller houses? If you had to choose one or the other, as opposed to leaving it the way it is.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Schwartz, we will absolutely, if that's going to make or break it, we have no problem. We were just presenting you with something so you could see, in terms of the location, we have some maneuverability there. In terms of the driveways, you heard him. We just laid it out there so you guys could see it. Now understanding that and hearing that certainly does make sense that we would put the two of those on the interior. Not a problem.
And so that's one of the things that concerns me, is it makes so much sense, yet it wasn't presented the sensible way. So I question what else wasn't presented the sensible way. I don't have the plans as revised, so I can't look at it from an architectural point of view. The idea that you're talking about, I wrote it down, a mix of 1- and 2-story homes, and you're proposing 2- and 3-story homes. That is out of character for the neighborhood right there. So,
I'm going to give you a chance to close, because I'm sure you want to have to address some of the public. So what I want to do...
I'll reserve for now.
Yeah. Okay, so with that, I'm going to open it up to the public. So let's talk about what that means. So now's the opportunity to come up and speak, to question their witnesses, ask any questions, concerns, give your thoughts on, what Mr. Schwartz also brought up, whether, 1 or 2 is a question, because we want to kind of hear that from a board. But if you hear the person in front of you has already addressed some of that, I'll leave it to you to whether you feel if there's the need to come up. Okay, but come up, and you have to be sworn in one at a time. Name and address.
Hi, my name is Sam Meehan, and I'm a Springfield resident of 23 years. I live on Kipling Avenue.
Do you mean
Oh,
have to take notes here because we don't have
Sure, I live on 2 Kipling. I'm in the corner lot of Kipling and Mountain.
Okay.
Are you lot 23? Excuse me, you're lot 1. Lot 1.
Okay. Do you swear that any information that you are going to present is going to be true in its entirety?
I swear.
Sorry, thank you. Do you swear that any information or testimony you will give is true in its entirety?
I do.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, basically, let me start off by saying that I do appreciate the work that's been done in the house that's there now. It has definitely improved our street. It's a pretty house. And the lot that's next to it, yeah, it's a little odd, and there's a field there. But let me tell you something about my background. I'm a graphic artist, I'm an interior designer, I'm an artistic person. I'm about balance. I see things I'm a visual person. And I disagree with this gentleman here when he says when people drive by, they say, what happened here? Well, picture your teeth. I mean, somebody could take out your 2 front teeth and put 3 small teeth in. You could fit it in there. Does it aesthetically look good to you? No, that's exactly what's going to happen to our neighborhood. If you put 2 skinny little houses there, so you have a McMansion, a ranch, 2 skinny houses, another ranch, a McMansion. All of a sudden, the landscape of our street is changing way too fast. When I moved there, it was all ranches. And all of a sudden, a McMansion popped up around the street, around the corner from us. And then another one, and then another one, and then another one, and another one, and another one. So it sets a precedence for our street. So now our street has changed. Now, let's add another factor, is put 2 small houses in there. So what's stopping another person from saying, hey, let's sell my lot. I can get it for cheap. Put 2 more little houses on there. And all of a sudden, he starts to change the landscape of the entire neighborhood. I grew up in Edison, and in my neighborhood, when we were in the 80s, we had a very tiny lot that we used to play in. All of a sudden, that lot was sold to a house. So on that very street to this very day, There's all these ranches, but a skinny, skinny house that's sitting in the middle of the street that nobody wants. They wanted it in the 80s because it was hot, but now when you pull up in the street, you see a skinny house surrounded by ranches. To this day, it's being rented because no one. It's an odd house. It's a new house, but it's an odd house. As for, so if there's a question between the big McMansion and the little houses, yeah, well, it's going to be the big mansions because at least that one fits in the neighborhood now because that's what we have now already. And you mentioned also that, you know, that a lot of the houses in our town don't use all the lots. It's all about space. Exactly. So we're going to shove all these houses in 8 feet apart? Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. Just like you go on a plane, you have first class, you have coach. Coach isn't great. I mean, I'm a 6'1" person. I'm literally arm to arm to the person who's next to me because an engineer said, we could fit in a plane. Whether it's comfortable or not, we can make it happen. Okay, it's doable, but is it pleasing to everyone? Not people in coach. People in first class, maybe. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Jeff doesn't fly coach.
Stop it. Can you say your first name and?
My name is Joseph Meehan,
Joseph, I'm sorry, spell your last name for me?
Meehan,
And your address?
2 Kipling Avenue,
Okay.
Springfield.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear that any testimony or information you're about to provide is true in its entirety?
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
Speaking to the mic.
It's the same address.
Good evening. Hi. I'm going to be very quick. I also lived in Springfield for 23 years, and the traffic coming home from my job is insane. And the reason why is because they've taken my side of Springfield and added Springfield Gardens. They've added more stores. They've added a lot of things there. There's a lot more people living there, which is a good thing, I believe, for our town. I don't have a problem calculating the traffic, but I do notice that it is a big burden. We have a school right up the street, and I feel like an extra house has to be considered a burden on the traffic, okay? Sam presented some good points. That's one of my points. The other one is that the lot that's on the side of that house isn't really adequate to use for 2 homes, because you have a house with a driveway that would be maybe a few feet from the side of this very tall house. It just would look like the jagged teeth. So McMansions are a thing now. They produce nice taxes for the city, and I think the costs of putting 2 homes in there, you might make $1 million, but what is it going to do in the long run? You know, the kids are going to be sitting on their school buses, and their moms are going to be trying to pick them up. It's not good quality for the town, but I do believe in revitalizing the community, and I appreciate it because I take care of my home. You know, we all do, right? So that's all I got. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything further from the public? Thank you.
My name is Ann King.
Ann King.
I live at 29 Kipling Avenue in Springfield.
And will you raise your right hand for me? Do you swear that any testimony or information you're about to provide is true in its entirety?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sure. I'm short. First, I have to disagree with the attorney. We would rather go up the street and see green lawns as opposed to 2 big monstrous houses on an undersized lot. Your letter made reference to, in fact, I'm going to quote you. It says that the equal size that is more harmonious to the scheme of the existing neighborhood, the applicant seeking relief for 2 variances, both lot area and lot width, while deficient, are similar to overwhelming design scheme of the neighborhood. I don't know where that is in our neighborhood. I've lived there for over 35 years. We don't have big, humongous houses on undersized lots. So I actually see it as a safety issue also in our neighborhood. As one of my neighbors said, we have a lot of traffic that goes on Kipling Avenue. A lot of that traffic is also to benefit the businesses that we have, Dunkin' Donuts, the variety store, nail salon, and other eateries that we have. I like to present some pictures that I've taken on different days of the week to show the traffic that we have on Kipling Avenue. And unfortunately, a lot of that traffic is towards Mountain Avenue. And if you've ever gone on Mountain Avenue during lunch hour or anytime after 11, for about 2 hours, there's tons of cars on Mountain Avenue and also on Kipling because they patronize the stores there and the businesses. We're overwhelmed with big trucks, landscapers, sanitation trucks, all kinds of trucks. In addition to visitors or homeowners parking on the street, we're overwhelmed with a lot of traffic. We have children in that neighborhood. We have kids that ride bicycles. I see this as a safety issue because when the cars turn off of Mountain Avenue, they're in a hurry to get into their car to go wherever they need to go. It's going to have an impact on the children because you're going to consolidate a lot more people, a lot more cars in that small little area. I'd like to present some pictures, if I may, for you to keep and review, and it shows the impact of the traffic. And on the back,
All right, these are photos that you've taken?
Yes.
Kipling.
All right. Mark them individually.
I just call them group pictures.
Group pictures?
Group pictures of Kipling.
All right, we'll call it 01.
I'll pass it out the board. It's, to me, it looks like it's all Kipling.
Correct.
Street. Do you guys want to, I'll start down there.
And then we'll share them with the.
And then we'll share it with the council once they.
Okay.
Now,
We'll count the number.
Yeah.
now council also made a reference to some of the other properties in the neighborhood that are undersized. We do have 2 houses, and I based my information within 200 feet of the proposed variance property that we're speaking about. And there are 2 houses, but one house was built 90 years ago, and that's on Mapes, and it is on an undersized lot. We don't need to go back in time and make bigger houses on smaller lots. Basically, what people are doing nowadays are making nicer houses on an approved lot size. We feel we're going to be compacted by multiple cars, multiple visitors, family members, the normal traffic, the trucks that we have, landscapers we have, and I feel it's going to be overwhelming, especially because that property in question is close to Mountain Avenue. And once again, you have people that park there, that utilize the buses to go to New York or elsewhere in town. So we have a lot of issues. Some of those pictures that I presented are cars parked on Mountain Avenue, and you'll see that's congested also. And if they can't park on Mountain Avenue, of course they'll park on Kipling or on Mapes.
Anything further?
Yes. Give me one
Oh, no, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I had to do
Could I
a
ask
lot
a
of
question?
notes today.
Yeah.
The witness?
Yeah.
Ma'am, this particular picture, can you just identify what the address on Kipling is?
This one here is, I can tell you in 1 second when I look it up.
Sure.
Yeah, that's the new house. The gray house, the new house, the one where it is. No.
Sorry to interrupt, go ahead.
That's okay, not a problem. I'll tell you in 1 second.
No, it's okay. We just.
We'll figure it out.
We have a time limit per resident of 5 minutes.
Okay,
We
no.
want everyone else to speak, so that's why I wanted to make sure you
Okay. I believe it might be number 17, something in that area.
I think it's one.
It's definitely not 17. There's no 17.
And that brick house that is currently on that 100 by 100 foot lot has been there for 70 years. It's been in disarray for many, many years. And if you go past it, you'll see it's gotten really quite bad. Sometimes I kind of think the house should just fall apart. Since that house has been there for 70 years, nobody's really complained about it. It was doable. I think I speak on behalf of my neighbors over here. We would prefer to see one large house that would fit nicer in the neighborhood and still provide some greenery as opposed to two oversized houses on undersized lots. That's going to make us more urban than suburban. This application for the variance, there is absolutely no benefit to any of the neighbors on Kipling Avenue. No benefit. If anything, it's just going to cause more congestion, problems, headaches, perhaps rain issues, perhaps flooding, though I understand they're going to mitigate that, though we don't really know if there's a guarantee about it. Another concern also be for during the winter months. Is there going to be any issues with larger trucks such as snow plows because of the congestion of cars there, of people? And also, is it going to eliminate any parking spots that are now available to larger vehicles on Kipling Avenue? Because you're going to have now 2 driveways as opposed to the current 1 driveway. And how is that going to fit in with the streetscape? Is that going to change? It looks like it will, because you're not going to have as much greenery. So I think we're going to be impacted a lot more. I don't think there's any benefit whatsoever. And you talk about the driveway, that you're going to have it where there's entry for 1 car. If you're going to be building a house with 4 bedrooms, which would be a total of 8 bedrooms in the 2 houses, that means there's going to be a lot more cars, a lot more family members coming, a lot more company coming, a lot more traffic. The fact that we have an issue on our street already where there is one house in particular that has 5 cars in a driveway that barely holds 4 cars. And they actually have a trailer on top of that. So you get to the point, the bigger of a driveway you make, you're going to wind up putting more stuff in there. And once again, it's going to impact on all the neighbors.
Yeah, so I'm going to cut you off there because we have like a 5-minute rule, and I want to let
Yes,
the other
that's
the other
not a
residents
problem.
speak.
I'm going to sum it up. Once again, I've been there for over 35 years. I love the neighborhood. I like it the way it is, and I speak on behalf of all my neighbors. We all love our neighborhood. The thing is, we don't want to see it being squished by something that does not provide any benefit for us whatsoever. And like the engineer said before, and I believe the planning officer, if you do it for one, you're going to have to do it for everybody. And I think Springfield needs to maintain what we have, the serenity we do, the placement of the houses where they are, and not to kind of outdo us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can you state your name for the record?
Good afternoon. My name is Catherine McMillian.
Catherine, spell your last name for me, please.
McMillian.
What's your address?
25 Kipling Avenue, Springfield.
You raise your right hand for me. Do you swear or affirm that any testimony or information you're about to provide is true in its entirety?
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. I am going to be very brief with my information, and I just want to say thank you also to the you for how you presented to us. I am not going to repeat over and over. We all feel the same way. I just want to answer your question. Yes, we would like to see a larger house instead of 2 tiny houses on our block. As someone said, when you walk in and you see the 2 tiny houses there, you're going to say, wow, what is going on here? I've been in the neighborhood for over 20 years, and we love, as she said, we love our neighborhood. We love the beautification of the neighborhood, and we'd like to keep it that way. To see 2 tiny houses come in the neighborhood like that would be devastating. So I'm just saying, it doesn't make sense to split 1 lot into 2 houses. And I don't want to repeat over what she said because all of us feel the same way as I said before. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anything further from the public?
Carmine Devone, 12 Kipling, 25 years there.
Spell your last name for me.
Eevone.
You're right across from the property, correct?
What's that?
You're right
Yeah,
across.
Directly across. On the house with the brown roof.
What number did you say? I'm sorry.
12 Kipling.
Thank you. Right hand. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that any testimony or information you're about to provide is true in its entirety?
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead.
They basically covered everything I wanted to go over, other than I wanted to tell Mr. Schwartz about the pass-through streets. To avoid Edgewater and Hillside, Kipling is becoming one. Yeah. I window every morning. I see sometimes 4 or 5 cars waiting here. 205 feet from Mountain, and then we have a traffic light about 200 feet from there with Walton School. Small children, there's about 6 of them on that end of the street, eastern end, and it's just dangerous. It's too much. That's all.
Thank you. Anything further from the public? That wasn't covered? No? I think that we have a general gist of the thing. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to open up to the board for just some closing, or actually, you guys should close first. You close first, and then you could whatever you want to kind of put final on the record.
Just note, because I have to become a lawyer and have to do evidentiary stuff, I would object to the entry of these pictures. They weren't really identified properly. We asked her what a particular address was. She was unable to do that. Enough said there.
Thank you.
With regards to it, it's always difficult, right? It's always difficult. I sat in your seat, and it's hard. You know, there's the NIMBY thing, right? There's also banana right, build nothing near anything anywhere, right? You ever hear that one? And that's not what we have here. We have concerned citizens. We have people who really do truly seems to love their neighborhood. Obviously they do, 23 years, 35 years. So change is always difficult. But when you balance, when you do the C2 balancing test, it's really about what's going to be worse. And is it really worse? It's not a threat, I assure you that. It's just to show you what it was, and you get that. I understand that. But that's the potential that could be there. I think honestly, people are saying they don't want anything. I think they don't realize that the potential is out there, that another worse McMansion could come in. Something that would be 74 feet wide, I think Mr. Disco said, with 26 feet. A 74-foot wide house potentially could appear on the street. Not saying that's going to happen, but when you balance that and you say, all right, which is worse? What's worse? Is it worse for me to have a 10,000 square foot lot with a house that's 76 feet wide across the street from a mix of homes, but predominantly capes in this neighborhood? Is that worse? Or is it better for us to drive down the street and have what is realistically a harmonious streetscape as you drive down that street and see beautiful house after beautiful house after beautiful house? The board understands what needs to be done here. You guys understand your role. You understand the balancing testimony.
see that in fact it is less of a detriment to have two lots and two smaller homes than it would be to maintain what is there with the ability for someone to really, really move that neighborhood with each house. Thank you.
Keenan or Mr. Disco, anything to add before I open up to the board?
In fairness to the applicant, I think you heard some traffic concerns. There's no engineering reason from a traffic perspective that one house is going to have a deleterious impact. I can go the other way and say, I did a chart. There's no other homes on that block that are under 6,000 square feet. And it goes back to that.
Keenan, Mr. Hughes? Thank you. All right, so I'm going to open up to the board, closing this for just discussion. Jerry, since I started over there, mix it up. What are your thoughts, comments?
I mean, I have an issue that number, Michael knows that ordinance is an issue, then still want to know a little bit more about the stormwater runoff and how that's going to be worked out. I know that's an issue. I'd like to hear a little, I'm not sure, how do you plan on handling that, mitigation for the stormwater? Exactly, what do you?
It would be, rather than ask and then have to open up, it would be a condition of approval that they meet any stormwater regulations with Mike.
Ask for design drainage as well.
It's routine that you can mitigate. There are engineering techniques to capture that water, delay its runoff.
What are some options for that? Like how?
So typically for residential, you're going to collect the roof area because it's easily collectible. You already have a gutter, you already have a downspout. So you've got a conveyance structure to get it into an underground storage structure.
Okay.
Some of those are the precast concrete type of seepage basins. Others are just stone, which create voids, filter fabric line. And as long as the groundwater isn't high, and as long as the soils allow some seepage, those are techniques that are used area-wide.
Well, the water line, I mean, where I live on Hillside, you can see, I mean, the water line is very, it's right there.
Is this in the flood zone?
It is not.
Not in the flood zone. Well,
In terms of the groundwater, though, again, basements have to deal with this. So often, somebody
this area.
explores where the groundwater is, and the basement level, or what, mechanisms are put in place to ensure that.
This area's had trouble during the hurricane.
Jerry knows.
I know pretty
I
well.
know you do. Yeah.
No, that's all I know.
Carolyn?
I just think that you said banana, and I think multiple people from the public came up today and said that they would rather have a mansion, answering Mr. Schwartz's question, than these two houses that do not fit into the in their best opinion. And so I heard that and I recognize that, and that's all my comments are.
Andrew, this time.
Yeah, Mr. Disco, with the mitigation of the water runoff, you're talking about collecting out of the gutters. I know I have a problem, and I have more trees than most residents in the neighborhood. That in the fall, if I'm not up there every 2 hours, my gutter is clogged with leaves. What impact is that going to have?
Well, I mean, it's the same whether it's one house or two. You still have the capability for that.
But if there's one house, you've got this wonderful big open land of grass, which is going to absorb a lot of that.
So
Anyway,
the gutters spill over onto the ground, and if you have more grass, it has a chance to get in.
I'm greatly troubled by this application. As was noted by the Deputy Mayor, in 2003, this town passed an ordinance that said no larger than 6,000 square feet. No smaller than 6,000 square feet. That didn't sound right. And what we're talking about doing here is, granting a variance to that ordinance. That in the request for variance, you say that two lots of equal size, that is more harmonious to the scheme of the existing neighborhood. But it's not. When you look at when you look at A6, putting 250 by 100 lots in there is at odds with the rest of Kipling Avenue between Mountain and Wentz. Plus, you're now going to 3 stories in an area where your planner testified it's a mix of 1- and 2-story homes. So the harmony there that you're talking about creating is not there. It's disharmony. I also think that, when I look at A7, I may have tongue-in-cheek referred to it as a threat, but to the extent that this would satisfy our ordinances and may not require a variance, there's a reason for that. That in 2003, when the ordinance was last updated, that was deemed to, if that's the size of the lot in a neighborhood, that would be approved. If you can do it without a variance, then these folks don't get to complain about it. And these folks seem to be in favor of that. I also don't think that if you're going to put a McMansion on that particular street, I think you're going to have to do it with great care if you want to sell it. Because, if it's going to be too far out of character with the neighborhood, I think you're going to find that somebody doesn't want to own it. This application is very troubling. I don't see that the benefit does outweigh the detriment to the neighborhood.
Sharon. As much as I want to make a lot of different comments and opinions, Mr. Schwartz seems to have said everything that
He usually does that in every
that
application.
I was thinking.
In a good way.
I'm pickish that way.
But I do believe that it is not this application is not in harmony with the neighborhood and the McMansion design that was presented. I didn't look at it as a threat. I looked at it as just another option because we have other McMansions. But as Mr. Schwartz said, if you can do it without a variance, then build it. And we've heard from the public, and that's what they want. And I do think that the detriments are significant here. I'm not in favor of.
Marissa?
Yeah, I'm failing to see what the benefits are here, other than going to the property owner. So that's my 2 cents.
Brian?
I agree with Marissa. Nothing else.
Scott?
I think most of it's been said. I don't necessarily agree that two new homes are a lot nicer looking than a 70-year-old dilapidated one. But I'd sit here and say I dare you to build what's allowable per code. Go ahead and do it. So that's not a threat. Do it.
Should I call you Deputy Mayor Huber?
Mayor
I'm
Huber.
Deputy
Mayor now. Remember that.
You promoted him. Go ahead.
No, I told you the way I felt before, and I always feel that way. We're not just up here for tax committee. A lot of people think we're just up here, we're going to approve everything. Get the taxes. We're not here for that. I'm here for the better of the town, and this isn't bettering the town. That's where I feel.
Thanks.
I'll you go ahead, and then I'll go.
Do you have something to say?
I do have something to say.
Would you like to go ahead?
As
the former chair of this board.
Let's go.
And former mayor,
So
go ahead.
I'll just sum it up. One of the public made, a very good comment that if you had 2 front teeth and you got them knocked out, would you put 3 front teeth? And to me, does it look good? No. So I think that really kind of alleviates to kind of give some analogy of what it is. So that's kind of where my thoughts are.
So real quick, first of all, I'd like to thank the members of the public for showing up and for giving us their opinion. It's certainly extremely important when the residents get up and also help us make our decisions. So I thank you very much for coming out. I know it's getting late. We had to consider the questions around the C2 zone and the variances which are being asked for. I've heard from the public. I've certainly heard from this board. I don't think that this particular application is a benefit to the neighborhood, nor do I think that the benefits of this outweigh any detriments. And it is a major change to the character of this neighborhood. So for those reasons, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to deny application 4-2019S.
I'll second it.
Before I do that, anyone have any more comments before we do the vote?
You just gave everyone comments.
Okay, I know, I just want to make sure. Yeah. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Barnett?
Yes.
So you're voting yes to deny?
Yes to deny.
Yes to deny.
That's why I phrased it that way. So it's a motion to deny application 4-2019S. So a yes vote is a denial.
Committeeman Huber?
Get down.
Yes.
Mr. Schwartz?
Yes to deny the application.
Mr. Fernandez?
Yes.
Ms. Singer?
Yes.
Mr. Wishna?
Yes.
Ms. Ruggiero?
Yes.
Vice Chair Pessel?
Yes.
And Chairman Tyler?
Yes.
Motion passes 2-9.
Okay. All right, so our next meeting, thank you for coming. Sorry.
Everyone, have a great evening.
Our next meeting will be Monday, July 29th, 2019, in this very room at 7 p.m. There's adjourned second. All in favor, aye.
A motion to deny adjournment?
Why, you want to stay?
You can just vote.